Fatima Akhtar, Head of Communications and Sustainability at Jazz. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Last year at Mobile Congress Barcelona, Jazz renewed your commitment to reduce the gender gap in your mobile internet customer base, which is great. I was wondering what motivated you to do that.
Thank you. So, as every organization has a purpose, the purpose at Jazz is to improve the lives and livelihoods of the people of Pakistan. But our main focus area remains women, since women are 50% of the population. And at Jazz, we strongly believe that we cannot make any progress, whether it's in our business or whether it's in social impact, until we don't account for the 50% of these women. We did this commitment last year to ensure that we improve the access of women to internet. We believe internet is the greatest equalizer, and by providing access to these women, we will provide them with a level playing field so that they can improve and gain in terms of benefits of livelihoods and economic opportunity. By putting them on a path of economic prosperity, we hope to uplift them out of poverty and really solve one of the greatest challenges Pakistan faces, which is socioeconomic development. This commitment lies in the premise that digital and financial inclusion is the heart of what we do. We do that through our products and services. We do that through our sustainability efforts. So this really has been some of the key areas of why we made this commitment and why it matters so much to us that we stay on track and we do something substantial when it comes to this agenda.
Right. Great. So we understand you've already started your work to drive increased digital inclusion for women. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about what you're doing.
So what we've done essentially is approach it very holistically. And there are various steps that we have taken. One of the first and foremost step that we have taken is how can we include the rural women? So the digital inequity that exists within the country is not just gender, it's geography as well, right? So the urban-rural divide has increased the digital divide between the people in the rural areas and the people in the urban centers. So we have a rural program where we proactively go in the deep rural communities. We educate women around the benefits of digital inclusion, digital literacy, and how it can improve their lives. So when it comes to health, when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to their day-to-day living, technology can be a great enabler for them. And that's really some of the education that we're doing in deep rural communities. Other than that, we are working with organizations like GSMA, of course, and UNDP, where we're working with rural entrepreneurs, women rural entrepreneurs, who are in one way or the other trying to make a difference through their social enterprises. And these women are really the champions of digital inclusion within their community. And by championing these women and putting our weight behind these women, they are helping educate and uplift communities around them as well. Through our products, through our services, we are ensuring that we account for this segment of the population, urban, rural women. How can we offer them data packages which addresses their day-to-day needs? Women rely on the internet for a variety of reasons, but when it comes to health, when it comes to education, when it comes to economics, how can we really make this experience for them more meaningful so that they can really benefit from the gains of internet connectivity?
Right. So our research shows that key barriers are that women are not aware of the internet. It's not affordable, particularly headsets. They lack the skills in digital skills literacy. So I was wondering how you're kind of taking these barriers into account in your work.
So as I mentioned before, we're really adopting an ecosystem approach. It's not just about addressing a particular barrier, but it's really about adopting a lens where we account for most barriers. So one of the biggest barriers that has been is, of course, affordability. And we are working with the government in terms of introducing some sort of a policy when it comes to handset affordability through an installment-based program. There are various nuances to it. There are a lot of policy concerns around it, which we're doing a back and forth with the government, but we're hoping that this will sort of come through. More than that, I think one of the biggest barrier has been that what we call a digital parda. So parda, which is called a veil in Pakistan. And really, this is what exists when it comes to a lot of these women are being excluded from the inclusion agenda because of this veil that exists, because a lot of the men are deciding on their behalf. So what we have done, which is different, is that we have, through diversity leads who go and talk to these women, we've also, they also talk to the male folk of the family. So really, it's bringing the entire family on board. And the potential or the benefit or the promise of what technology offers is not just limited to the women, but really if she jumps on this bandwagon, it's beneficial to the entire community. And by linking it to the economic prosperity, that's how we're trying to bring in that buy-in from women, from their community members, from the male members of their family. So these are some ways through which we are also learning and trying to, in real time, do course correction and try to adopt an approach which is holistic, which accounts for, again, rural women, urban women, across geographies, across communities in Pakistan.
Okay, so I know Jazz is running a rural digital skills program. I'm wondering how you're building gender intentionality into that program you're doing.
So what we're trying to do is that through, as I mentioned earlier, our programs, which are very rigorous, a partnership-led approach is really key here, because when we go out into the communities, we can't do it alone because the agenda is too big. So by partnering with GSMA, by partnering with the government, by partnering with civil society organizations, NGOs who are deeply entrenched in communities, we're trying to really create that echo chamber around the benefits of digital inclusion for women. Other than that, as I mentioned, we have a program with the UNDP, which we're doing to our financial inclusion initiatives, which are also very working with the government, the State Bank of Pakistan. We're trying to really educate women around the benefits of financial inclusion. So it's not a case of either or. We strongly believe that digital inclusion is the prerequisite to even financial inclusion and other agendas. And it's really about sort of educating people on this base layer of digital inclusion and how we can really build products and services on top of that. So these are just some of the ways in which we're kind of bringing in the intentional approach. There are a lot of, as I mentioned, nuances, a lot of contextual aspects, which when we go into the communities, we have to realize, because what works in one province, for example, in KP, may not work in Punjab, where women are a little more empowered. They're able to go out in rural areas and they're able to sort of have some sort of activity, whereas in other provinces, that's not the case. So there's not a cookie cutter approach to how it's going to be done, but rather like a more contextual, what works in this context. Let's learn about it and then kind of implement it.
So you talked about how in some places it could be more challenging for it to be acceptable for women to be able to go online. How have you tried to break down the sort of perception that it is not okay for women to be online?
So I think that in all this, one of the key things is trust, right? So how much are people, communities, men, women willing to trust the platform or a mobile phone? And that's really something we're really scratching the surface of. And now what our focus really is that how can we enable a relationship of trust between between the mobile phone and the people who use it. And in this case, the women and the men who have certain, I would say, biases or certain misinformation around what the benefits of this would be. So I think striking that balance for us is important. And what we're now trying to do is we're trying to really, build that relationship of trust between us as Jazz, as an operator, and the communities we go in. And that we're doing by going straight into the communities, talking to the men, talking to the women. As I mentioned, taking sort of a holistic ecosystem approach where we are not just speaking to women, but we're really telling the men the economic value to be gained from digital inclusion. And again, that's a very compelling reason for a lot of people in the rural areas who are in sort of entrenched in poverty, and how we can really lift them out of poverty. As I mentioned earlier, that it provides a level playing field. And if we can create those opportunities through digital literacy, through create digital opportunities where we can connect some of these women to maybe e-commerce platforms, because a lot of women in these rural areas are involved in some sort of traditional scale. And if we can provide that platform where they can showcase their skill or their product on global e-commerce platforms, there's an economic opportunity right there. So a lot of this is really just about going there, educating the men, the women about the value which is to be gained. And that's really how through some of our interactions, through our deep rural program, we are educating these women and the men on the benefits.
Looking a bit ahead, what do you see as the biggest challenges to digital and financial inclusion for women in Pakistan, and how are you sort of thinking about it, how to address them?
So for me, and this is me personally talking about it, I think that I would like to move from digital sort of inclusion towards like digital parity, right? So it's about bringing women into the digital fold, but what we're really aiming for is some sort of a parity, right? So if the benefits that internet, that mobile phone have to offer to the people of our country should be equitable for both men and women. And that's something we are really sort of putting our weight behind. And as I even mentioned earlier, our purpose remains improving lives and livelihoods of the people through technology, through mobile phones. And of these people, women remain our key area of focus. And there's a lot of work to be done. And I think the one thing that we will really be doing is strengthening more partnerships, because it has to be done as a collective agenda. It can't just be done by us as an operator alone. And in over the next few months or even years, what we really want to do is build a coalition around the digital parity and how we can bring in more women into the fold and really aim for that sort of 50-50 sort of ratio. So that's something I would say we'd really be interested in doing.
Right.